Alex Zanardi, reigning champion of the CART series, is a man whose Italian passion is combined with a voracious hunger for success. He's the roadrunner of the FedEx Championship, and he leaves everyone in his wake. The opposition, like Wile E. Coyote, try to keep up, but it's a thankless task. Perhaps they'll finally catch him on the roads of Belle Isle. Bip, bip. ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix comes from the raceway on Belle Isle, Detroit. Hello and welcome from Ben Edwards and Jeremy Shaw to this 8th round of the FedEx Championship Series, held over 72 laps of the 2.3-mile track. It twists its way through parkland on an island in the Detroit River, just a few miles from downtown. And I have to say, we've got pretty good weather conditions here at the moment. There is quite a lot of cloud cover, but it is dry, and we did have rain on Friday, so we're fairly relieved to see that the rain isn't falling at the moment. Alex Zanardi comes into this race as the championship leader by 6 points only. He's taken 2 wins in the series already. The Ganassi team are looking extremely strong in the championship. His teammate Jimmy Vasser has also taken 2 wins in the series, the last one coming just last weekend on the Oval of Milwaukee. Alex Zanardi starts on the front row of the grid today, but alongside him on pole position is his main rival in the points battle. It's Greg Moore, the Canadian, who's also been in superb form over the course of this season. Unfortunately, he didn't have so much fun in Milwaukee last weekend. He had an incident which bent the front suspension, but he's going well here this weekend. We spoke to him yesterday to hear his view.
Got here is it's a lot better for passing, so you lead in the race, you want to be on last year's track because it's a lot harder to pass, and then but if you're second, third, you want to be on this year's track because there is that great passing area down there. But you know, good job for everyone on my team. It's a really good job for today.
One of the most consistent runners of the championship so far this year. He really is in tremendous form.
Certainly is. He has the best qualifying record of anybody else in the series, and as you showed that again this weekend. And the skies here sort of partly cloudy or partly sunny, depending upon your own disposition perhaps, but I think we've got a good crowd on hand. I think we're going to have a heck of a race this afternoon, Ben.
I think we are, but let's just take the time out for a moment just before we get the cars out on the track to look back to what happened in last week's race in Milwaukee. It all started out with a good battle between Patrick Carpentier and Michael Andretti, but unfortunately they made contact. Carpentier went off into the wall. Michael Andretti's suspension was too bad to continue. Gilles de Ferran caused an incident when he blew up. It meant that Moore hit the back of Guterman. Moore bent his front suspension, and that meant he was out for a chance of victory. So Jimmy Vasser came through to win the race, and on the run to the flag, Alonso Jr. almost took second place away from Helio Castroneves, but the rookie did manage to get across the line. Jimmy Vasser, though, was the winner last weekend in Milwaukee, and moves himself up in the championship, now into 3rd place in the series, really becoming a championship contender, and starting in 7th place on this occasion. There, a look at the points. In 3rd place you see Jimmy Vasser. Adrian Fernandez has dropped away slightly, our earlier championship leader, winner of 1 race this season. Michael Andretti also a race winner, but how many could he have won if things hadn't have gone wrong? Gilles de Ferran still looking for his first race win with the Walker Racing crew.
Yeah, he joined the team last year. He's had a lot of podium finishes, a lot of good performances, but not yet been able to put that car into victory lane.
There's been a lot of incidents here over the course of the weekend as well. It is a street track. If you get it wrong, you're straight into the tyre barrier or the concrete walls that surround this twisty track, which has been revised for this year. Let's look at what's happened so far. Michel Jourdain was one of the first to go off on Friday. A dramatic looking accident when he went over having hit the tyres. Max Papis went off in qualifying yesterday, the man who had set the pole position on Friday. Andre Ribeiro on Friday in the damp conditions lost control of his Penske. He's having a bit of a tough weekend. And Christian Fittipaldi, who crashed in Milwaukee, didn't race. He crashed again here yesterday and was a little bit dazed after that incident. So quite a few offs we've seen already this weekend.
Yeah, Christian admitted yesterday to pushing too hard on that corner. He said, I was trying to get as much as I could out of the car. And he's talking about the tyres. The Goodyear tyres this weekend do not seem to have quite the same grip as the Firestones. And he was overdriving the car, he admitted, and he put the car heavily into the wall. But it's been repaired, and he will be back racing this afternoon.
The track has been revised for this running of the Detroit Grand Prix on the Belle Isle Raceway, which they've been at since 1992. It's always been a hard track to overtake, but the new extension now sees a longer straight, which should make it easier.
More than 3 times as long as it was last year, that straightaway between turns 2 and 3. And turn 1 and 2, pretty tight, pretty fast corners. In fact, third gear coming off that turn onto the long straightaway, 185 miles an hour at the end of the straightaway, and heavy braking into turn 3. And that's where we think most of the passing is going to take place this afternoon.
Seeing the bottom end of the circuits, turns 4, 5 and 6 down there, but the cars are now heading out of the pit lane and onto the track for the first of their parade laps. They'll be doing several parade laps behind the pace car, building the speed up towards the rolling start. All set to go for this 8th round of the championship. So stay with us for the CART Championship. Welcome back to our live coverage here on Eurosport, and we've got a view there of Scott Pruitt, who has failed to get his car fired up down in the pit lane, obviously in some trouble. The cars are out on the circuit behind the pace car, except for Scott Pruitt, and he is obviously suffering to get out there. He should be lining up 17th on the grid, but things not looking good for him at all at the moment. Let's take the chance to look back at what happened last year in the race here in Detroit. The first corner, there was an accident involving Franchitti and Zanardi. It put Zanardi out of the race altogether. Up front, there were some good battles going on. Richie Hearn lost it, unfortunately. Watch out for him today. He's qualified well up. At the end of the race, Maurizio Gutermin ran out of fuel. Mark Blundell looked to be set for the race win, but Greg Moore went past him when he ran out of fuel as well. The Pac West team tried to get through the race on just one pit stop. The gamble didn't quite pay off, and it allowed Greg Moore to come through to take his second win on the trot, having won at Milwaukee the week before. Disappointment for Pac West, but the following week they would get their first win, courtesy of Mark Blundell in Portland. Well, here we are, back live for the 1998 event, and Greg Moore, the winner from last year, leads the field around.
And we've got 27 cars on the track at the moment. Scott Pruitt's still not amongst them. They seem to have problems getting that engine not only fired up, but then keeping the fire going. It seemed to die every time they gave it any revs at all. So they're working on that, and maybe they're trying to get the backup out as well.
Lovely view of Belle Isle Park here, with the bridge running across from the left-hand side that goes to Detroit, and on the other side we've got Canada.
Yeah, in actual fact, it's south from here.
Let's take a look at the grid then. Greg Moore, the winner here last year. Alex Zanardi went out on that first corner. He'll be hoping for better things this time. Adrian Fernandez and Richie Hearn on the second row of the grid. Fernandez fourth in the points. Richie Hearn, his best ever qualifying performance.
Row 3 of the grid, Brian Herter there, who of course was on the pole at Long Beach, and Tony Kanaan, the top rookie driver, he finished 5th on the first street race in Long Beach this season. Jimmy Vasser there, the winner last week in Milwaukee, was second here in 95. Dario Franchitti, second in Long Beach, a good performer on this kind of track.
Gilles de Ferran's back on the 5th row of the grid. He led 27 laps here last year. Christian Fittipaldi nearly won here in Detroit in 1996. Michael Andretti has won here twice before in Detroit, once on this track, and Bobby Rahal won on this circuit in 1992.
Row 7, Al Unser Jr. He's pretty pleased. He's only 1/10 of a second behind Michael Andretti. The Penske is improving. Helio Castro Neves, his best finish ever last week, second place in Milwaukee. Row 8, Paul Tracy, understeering qualifying once again. Patrick Carpentier, his teammate Greg Moore, is on the pole.
Now it should be Scott Pruitt next. He was second fastest in the warm-up, but we've seen he's got problems. Michel Jourdain is on that 9th row. The best result he's had is 12th this year. Max Papis took the pole on Friday, dropped back in second qualifying. His teammate won here in 1995.
Row 11, all Pac West again struggling this weekend. Row 12, JJ Leto and PJ Jones.
Behind them, Andre Ribeiro and Alex Barron, and on the final row of the grid, Arndt Meyer and Dennis Vitolo. Vitolo actually outside the qualifying time, but they did allow him to take his position on the grid.
a lot of work by that team this week to build up a brand new car effectively. It was actually a car used last year by Team Rahal and effectively Brian Herter, but they've worked all hours that week. Mark Mason, the English crew chief on that car, to get him back into this race this weekend. Good job by Peyton Coyne Racing.
The final pace lap to build up the speed a little bit before they come round. They'll be racing the next time they cross that line as the green flag comes out. On board with Richie Hearn. Now, we're going to get the chance to start this race with Richie Hearn, and he starts on the second row of the grid. What a great performance this was in qualifying yesterday by the 27-year-old American. Not a star name perhaps, but perhaps a star of the future.
Absolutely. A winner previously of the Toyota Atlantic Championship, a stepping stone into this series. And Richie Hearn, he's really come on strong these last few races. The Della Penna Motorsports team is not the most highly budgeted of organizations, but they've really put their resources to great use. And two very, very strong runs both in Rio and Milwaukee for Richie Hearn.
That's right. Last time out in Milwaukee, that was his best ever finish, that 6th place. And tactics came into that, but he drove a great race. Also on board with Michael Andretti. And Michael starts a little further down than he would like. He's back on the 6th row. He's got the two former winners there of a race around this track, Andretti and Rahal together.
Yeah, the Swift Ford Cosworth there for Michael Andretti. It's the same as Richie Hearn. The tyres are the difference. Richie Hearn is on Firestones, Michael Andretti on Goodyears. And Andretti admitted they went the wrong way on that setup of the car for qualifying. He thinks it's faster than he really showed in qualifying, but we'll see later on this afternoon, won't we?
And the Goodyears want higher temperatures. They're not so happy in the cooler conditions here with the tyre compound that they've got. They were expecting high temperatures in Detroit at this time of year. We were expecting them too. We haven't had them though. It's been freezing this weekend.
Friday was miserable, wasn't it? It was raining, it was cold, it was horrid. But now at least it's dry and it's warming up a little bit, and I think we're in for a very exciting race this afternoon. Look at these two. The two championship contenders will start alongside each other on the front row.
Now this is going to be interesting. Bit of timing comes into this. The pace car leading them round. Greg Moore trying to choose his moment as to when to get on the power. They've got to get themselves all a bit lined up first before they take that green flag. And Greg Moore versus Alex Zanardi, the top two in the championship, on the front row together. Tremendous battle in store. Watch out for accidents on this first lap. We often see them in the first corner. It's a right-left combination corner. Very tricky. If somebody goes in tight, it's very easy for it to all go wrong. We're going green. It's a terrible start for Richie Hearn. Richie Hearn's been dropped away. More leads into the first corner. Zanardi second. Fernandez is third. And Richie Hearn really made a bad getaway there. And he's dropped several places as a result. They're onto the long straight. There is Moore leading. Zanardi second. Fernandez third. Look at Tony Kanaan trying to get into fourth. But at the moment, it's Brian Herter. All side by side. Just stays in fourth. Kanaan trying everything to get past him there.
And a good move there by Tony Kanaan. He wasn't going to push his luck on the outside line. It's very slippery there on the concrete, and he wisely backs out of it and lets Herter take that line.
Riding on board with Gilles de Ferran at the moment as he tries to work his way up the order a little bit. A leader here last year, he had the pole, been struggling to get that sort of pace out of the car this weekend, but still in the hunt for a good result. Just ahead of him is Dario Franchitti by the looks of things, and just behind him Jimmy Vasser. But there is our race leader, Greg Moore, making a great getaway from pole position, and the two front row men now beginning perhaps to just pull away slightly from Fernandez. Not much in it yet. As they come around, they're going to complete their first lap in just a couple of corners time.
Yeah, and here we're on board with Zanardi there into the last couple of corners here. Turns 12 and 13, a long double apex right-hander there, brings you quite quickly onto the start-finish straightaway. And here comes Greg Moore with a length, but 7 or 8 car lengths lead over Alex Zanardi. Round past our booth here into turn 1 and on to lap 2.
So Moore has got the getaway that he needs and really looking to try and stretch out an advantage over Zanardi. Fernandez in third place, then Brian Herter in fourth, Tony Kanaan in fifth. Richie Hearn dropped down to sixth position as a result of that bad getaway. Remember, he started on the second row, hasn't been that far up before. Perhaps the nerves got to him a little bit.
Yeah, and interesting there, the CART rules actually say you're not allowed to pass anybody on the road in front of you before you cross the start-finish line. Well, Herter clearly did get past Richie Hearn there, so it'll be interesting to see whether they penalise Brian Herter for that start. But it was really down to Richie Hearn. He didn't get on the gas. I think if they do penalise Brian Herter, that would be a pretty dodgy call by the officials. So we'll wait and see what happens there. I'm sure they're weighing it up right now, the pros and the cons, and we'll see what decision they come to.
So Herter in fourth. The back of this little group, you'll see the green and white car of Dario Franchitti. Franchitti was just watching the Grand Prix a few moments earlier as he wanted to see what was going on in Canada. But at the moment, he's now focused on what's going on in this race because he is trying to chase down Richie Hearn, who lies in 6th place. Greg Moore, Alex Zanardi, the top two at the moment. Fernandez in 3rd place. Interesting to see on the speed track figures across the start-finish line here that we've seen this weekend. It's been the Ford Cosworth engine cars that have had the edge, just about 180 miles an hour across that start-finish line. A little bit more on this longer straight down towards turn 3, but that Ford Cosworth engine again providing the power. Look at Kanaan in the background. Kanaan and Herta still battling for that 4th position. We have to look back and see if Kanaan was able to do anything there. Just looking at the profile of Greg Moore, lying 2nd in the series at the moment. This Canadian who has performed so well this year, and we just heard that they're not going to penalise Brian Herta. They're happy about the start that he made, so that's probably good news.
Yeah, definitely the right move there. They made some, I think, dubious calls earlier on this season. They penalised a couple of people early on, but I think they've realised that you have to bring in a bit of force majeure here now and again. If somebody makes a mistake, you can't really penalise the guy who is on the throttle just because the other guy doesn't get away. So I think that's a good call by the CART officials and get this race going. And Brian heard it there, still looking for his first win. Of course, that's 62 starts in championship cars, no victories, but he loves the street and the road courses.
So Brian Herta heads this little gaggle of cars for 4th place. Tony Kanaan, the rookie Brazilian, right behind him, and he's been going quickly in most of the practice sessions over the weekend so far. Then Richie Hearn and Jimmy Vassar's involved a little further back than that. It's Franchitti after Hearn. Jimmy Vassar down in 9th position. Michael Andretti, by the way, lying in 10th place at the moment, just ahead of Fittipaldi. So the battle for 4th continues as Herta keeps an eye on his mirrors. Kanaan didn't get close enough that time to really make the move. The drivers are very happy about the changes that have been made to this track. The sequence just after the pits, the right-left, sets up a great chance to overtake down that next straight. And they say really it's a perfect lead on to the straight and a good braking area at the end of it. So hopefully we're going to see an example of that as we go through the race.
Yeah, it's early stages now. I think everybody's just settling down. Don't do anything dark in the early stages. Just see how the race does settle down. Getting into good rhythm with these cars. That's very important. You don't want to burn up the tyres too early for a start. And we're looking there at that battle there. 4th position. Brian Herta, then Tony Kanaan and Richie Hearn very, very close behind in 5th place, 6th place.
So as you say, early stages, 72 lap race is going to be a tough one. I know Dario was saying that it's going to be quite physically hard. It's a very bumpy track, this one. The cars and the drivers get shaken around a lot, and there's a long way to go. Also watch out as we go through this race, always there's a problem of little bits of rubber getting thrown off the tyres, the usual problem of marbles. Here at Detroit that seems to be a bigger problem even than on some of the other street courses. So watch out for that yourselves as you see the cars go through the number of laps. You will begin to see rubber offline, and that will make overtaking even more difficult. Back on board with Richie Hearn now, as Richie is in this little group battling for 4th place. Richie holding on to 6th position at the moment with Tony Kanaan right ahead of him. Greg Moore leads after 4 laps. With Christian Fittipaldi chasing after his teammate Michael Andretti. 6 laps have been completed in the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix. Greg Moore is still the race leader, but these two Swift chassis are battling for 10th place at the moment. I say battling, in fact they're really just following each other around in the early stages. They don't want to make any silly mistakes, and Christian particularly, poor chap, suffered a couple of major shunts in the last couple of weeks. I think he just wants to get into the rhythm of this race more than anything else. Interesting, in the past these two have battled for the race victory on this very circuit. A couple of years ago when the track started out very, very wet, Christian drove superbly. Michael just snatched the advantage in the closing stages, and that was the closest that Christian has come to winning a race in this series.
Yeah, one slight slip there for Christian Fittipaldi. It was such a shame. He really had driven a great race, and to his credit, you know, he could have easily have slammed the door on Andretti and risked taking the both of them out, but no, he let Andretti clearly had a better line into the corner, and he let him go and settled in for 2nd place. And it's been a long wait for Christian Fittipaldi. I know he was praying for rain this weekend. He really is a master in wet conditions. On Friday afternoon, he was fantastic to watch. He's praying for rain this afternoon, but I don't know whether his prayers are going to be answered.
Now you're watching the cars battling 4th, 5th, 6th places. Tony Kanaan is currently in 5th place. Richie Hearn, there he is, in the Budweiser car. He's in 6th place as he comes across the line into turn 1 and 2, taken in 3rd gear, over the bumps here. And the car taking the bumps pretty well, I have to say. they have to be careful getting on the throttle. They're up to 6th gear, about 185, a little bit more miles an hour as they come down towards turn number 3, back down through the gears. 3rd gear, accelerate. Now this second part is quite quick. It's a new right-hander, and then they accelerate again for a short distance through the new left-hander, and this is where they rejoin the original track around this Belle Isle Park, and now through the right-hander they're back in familiar territory as they come along the back stretch, which actually curves slightly past the lane. So Tony Kanaan still holding off Richie Hearn in that battle. Dario Franchitti right behind, 3 youngsters all out there to try and establish their reputations.
That is one of the best battles on the racetrack, and in fact back from there, behind Dario Franchitti is Gilles Leferrin, Jimmy Bassett, Michael Andretti, Christian Fittipaldi and Bobby Rahal and Paul Tracy, really all in a long line. And so there's going to be some good action here, I think, heating up. Last couple of laps, I noticed Greg Moore's pace dropped off a little bit. His first couple of laps were in the 17s, then down into the 16s. His last lap was a 17.7, 1 minute 17.7. And soon Alex Zanardi is beginning to close in. But here is Richie Hearn on board with him as he comes up to complete lap 8.
So good battles going on, as you say, up front as well. Richie Hearn's just complaining of a little bit of understeer, apparently, back to his pit crew. And that perhaps could be just the fact that he's following. Look at Kanaan there, the back end of the car, really sliding out down towards turn 3, hard on the anchors. Is he close enough? Not really. Franchitti also just showing the nose of his car, but not really thinking about overtaking at this point. But these cars really concertinaing closer and closer together, and ahead of them, Brian Herter really has managed to escape. He's now some 4 seconds up the road ahead of Tony Kanaan. Look at Franchitti. Franchitti's gone for the inside. Was there contact? It looked like there might have been. It was hard to see as he tried to go for it. Now he's alongside again, trying to get past Richie Hearn. We saw Dario Franchitti in great form in Milwaukee. Oh, squeezed out there. He can't quite do it, and he has to defend the line to Gilles Leferrin. On board with Gilles Leferrin now, who just saw Franchitti slice across in front of him. That all seemed to get almost quite physical, but whether there was contact, I'm not quite sure.
I don't know, but a good job by both of them there to hang on to it, and here we are on board with Gilles Leferrin. That could be some interesting action. Look at that train of cars behind, though. Some great action going on in there.
2 leaders have just come past our commentary position in towards turn 1. They have a big advantage over Adrian Fernandez. Adrian is very much on his own, and then Brian Herter comes through, and then this group that we're looking at, Kanaan, followed by Richie Hearn and Dario Franchitti. But look at the 2 leaders. Zanardi has closed up to Greg Moore, and the gap really has reduced. Look at this, Zanardi's now really beginning to think about going past into the left-hander.
Yeah, and that's interesting because Greg Moore, certainly his pace has dropped off quite considerably. He's down in the 18s now, 18.4 last lap around. He's struggling for some reason. What it is, of course, we don't know. We look at the tyres on Alex Zanardi's car. They're both running Firestone tyres. They look fine. No seem to be any problems there. But I think Greg Moore wouldn't like Alex Zanardi to be this close to him at this stage in the race.
No, it's a bit early, isn't it, for this sort of battle. You want to have just a bit of an advantage to maintain the pace, control the gap, but it doesn't look as though he's going to have that sort of option at the moment. Zanardi is chasing hard, looking to try and find the little gap, but these 2 are both hard racers. We've all seen the moves that Alex Zanardi has made in the past. Some very brave manoeuvres, and they usually work, you have to say. But Greg Moore, hard nut to crack. They've had their incidents in the past, these 2. It'll be interesting to see whether Zanardi is going to really have a go. Problems. Arndt Meyer is in trouble in the Lola. A lot of smoke coming from the back of his machine. Now, are they going to have to pull out the caution flag for this? They may be able to get that car out of the way. Looks like he may be down an escape road already, and maybe we can still keep it green flag. They're trying to get it out of gear and be able to push it off course. And if they can manage that without getting safety cars out there, they will do that. They do want to try and avoid running full course yellow where possible.
Good job there by the officials to get that car pushed out of the way. Arndt Meyer too, presence of mind to keep it out of gear, and they can push the car out of the way and get on with this race. And we've got a great race brewing up here. Last lap around for Greg Moore, 1:19.2. So he is definitely struggling for some reason. As I say, he was doing high 16s earlier on. He's dropped his pace by 2.5 seconds. That's a lot on this track.
It is a lot. In fact, looking down the list there, Jeremy, quite a few of the drivers seem to be going that little bit slower now, although some of the guys behind us still in the 118s, people like Franchitti, who was one of the fastest on that last lap, the time's really not matching what they were doing just a few laps ago. Lap number 11, we're about halfway to the first of the pit stops at the moment as they come on round. A little bit of debris. There's just a branch, I think.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a breeze out there, but that's curious. Quite a big chunk of bow there on the racetrack.
Well, let's hope nobody picks that up. Obviously gets into the radiator inlet. That could cause fairly major problems. But this battle continues. Zanardi, though, not deciding to do anything too risky at the moment. They can, if they want to, go for an overtake button that's richen the mixture up a bit and try and pull an overtaking maneuver. He may not really decide that the time is right for that yet. Don't forget how quick the Ganassi crew is at changing tyres, putting fuel in.
Yeah, and farther back from there, Richie Hearn actually found a way past Tony Kanaan. We didn't see it happen. It was done by the time they got here to cross the line to complete lap 11. And Richie Hearn now ahead of Tony Kanaan into 5th place. Herter is next ahead of him, 5 seconds up the road.
So it changes, an overtaking maneuver. We didn't get to see it, but obviously a good one for Richie Hearn. And Tony Kanaan finds himself back down in 6th position. But this battle for the lead, got to keep an eye on this. Zanardi through this tight, twisty section, second gear stuff, smooth on the throttle, trying to feed the power in as progressively as possible and keep that gap so close to Greg Moore.
Yeah, that's right. And Moore's certainly been fairly cautious going into these turns. He wants to make sure that he get off the corners quickly. And look at that right front tyre on Greg Moore's car. And I can see a bit of a band, a darker band around the middle of that right front tyre. And that might explain, well, that would explain why he's slowing down. But there's a quick left-hander there who's really leaning on that right front tyre. But both of those front tyres, darker bands in the middle there. That's a sign that is not good for Greg Moore.
Well, then perhaps there is some sort of tyre trouble. Of course, this track revised, new surfaces to deal with. A lot of change of surface from the concrete onto tarmac and back onto concrete again. That's something the drivers have been battling with a little bit throughout the qualifying and practice sessions. But Greg Moore at the moment still managing to hold Zanardi in 2nd place. 14 laps have been completed out of the 72, long way to go, and Zanardi seems content to sit behind Greg Moore at the moment in these early stages. Moore just a moment ago coming out of one of the turns, leading back round towards the start-finish straight out of turn 12, ever so close to the wall, just I think kept it off the wall. We had a great view from Alex Zanardi's onboard camera, but it just gives you an idea that Moore might not be doing the same sort of lap times as he was earlier, but he's still pushing very hard indeed. The gap back behind them has opened up to some 6.5 seconds almost to Adrian Fernandez, then Brian Herter in 4th place, with Richie Hearn ahead of Tony Kanaan and Gilles de Ferran ahead of Dario Franchitti. So de Ferran has now found a way past Franchitti, and he lies in 7th position.
Yeah, some good dicing going on there. And now it's interesting to me that Greg Moore has settled into a consistent pace. He's doing low 19s, 119.3, 119.1, 119.2 his last 3 laps around. So he's found a rhythm that is fairly comfortable for him. The car is certainly sliding around quite a bit, but he is able to keep Zanardi far enough behind. He doesn't have to worry too much about Zanardi taking a lunge down the inside anywhere.
So slightly faster speed across the line that time for Greg Moore. Slightly faster lap, but that really, I think Alex Zanardi is capable of going faster. The way he's shadowing Moore's every move would indicate that he certainly would be able to. Meanwhile, just looking at the other cars come past us, I saw that de Ferran very close to the back of Tony Kanaan's car, so that could be another change in a moment. And you can see, in fact, de Ferran with the fastest lap on that last lap going through across the line. At least it was a 19.007, so Gilles de Ferran in good shape at the moment. A good year tyre perhaps. Now Mark Blundell's just gone past us very wide. He slowed it right down. Let me tell you that Mark Blundell, you're not seeing him on picture at the moment, he was running quite a long way down the order.
He's actually in 20th place. He was trying to make a move there on Robbie Gordon. I think he got a little bit wide going into the turn. We'll see whether he did slow down or not when he comes, or not next time around. But certainly he was trying to make a move there on Robbie Gordon. He feels he's being held up by the Reynard Toyota. See if he can get past him. Last lap though, the 2 leaders, they're down in the 20s now, and you can see there's a little band on the inside right front there of Alex Zanardi's tyres as well. And I think these Firestone tyres, they're not giving the same amount of grip they were at the beginning of the race, that is for certain. But no one else can get close to them.
Oh, look at the Moore! Wow! Wow, he was so sideways over the hump there. And that surely is graphic demonstration of what you were saying, Jeremy. The tyre grip is just getting away from them. The Firestone perhaps quite a soft compound for this Detroit street track. And now that they're getting some serious laps on a fairly heavy tank of fuel, okay, that's burning away now. But in the early stages of the race, a lot of tyre wear. And Moore was completely crossed up, laying black lines across the concrete surface there. Fantastic shot, but Moore very nearly in big trouble.
Yeah, it was a good save, wasn't it? And we look back here, and Mark Blundell is still out on the racetrack. He lost a lot of ground, but he is still on the racetrack.
We've got news that JJ Leto's got gearbox problems, and that's what's dropped him back down the order. So JJ Leto having a tough weekend. He didn't qualify well. He was 23rd on the grid. They've had mechanical problems which have restricted the amount of track time he's had, and it really hasn't been a very good Detroit Grand Prix for the Finnish racer. Well, he'll just have to hope for better things next time out in Portland, but things continuing in the battle for the lead at the moment. Greg Moore and Alex Zanardi. Moore just a little stretched it out a little bit on that last lap as he comes across the line. Zanardi's dropped back a little bit, up to a second behind now.
Yeah, and Moore has picked up his pace a little bit. A second or more he's picked up over the last couple of laps. So he's not terribly consistent, but it is effective. He's trying very, very hard indeed. They use JJ Leto after a pit stop.
So JJ comes back out, and that gearbox problem they're trying to sort out. But I don't know if they're going to be able to manage to get things sorted out. This is a good view from the overhead shot to take a little bit more of a look at the track. This is the new section coming back onto the original section here, alongside the lake. This section known as the Strand, and quite a good view of the curving backstretch, which also curves a little bit as they come under braking, curves left and then right. And then into this tight and twisty series of second gear corners where traction is so critical to try and get smoothly out of these corners and as efficiently as possible. On board with Alex Zanardi again, still in second position, chasing after Greg Moore.
I think at this stage, with pit stops not too far away, he'll be happy with where he is. He's still got a comfortable margin, well over 5 seconds over Adrian Fernandez in third place. And, you know, the target Chip Ganassi crew in the pits this year has been absolutely marvellous. There's marbles building up offline there already. We've only got 18 laps in the books, but as I say, Rob Hill and the crew on the number 1 car have been absolutely phenomenal this season. They've really won a couple of races for Alex Zanardi, so maybe they can do the same again today.
So Zanardi perhaps just taking things steady at the moment, keeping Greg Moore very much in sight as we get a little closer to the first stops. Michael Andretti in the pits though, and that's a little earlier than we would have expected. It might indicate a problem for Michael Andretti, so that drops him down the order. He's the only one to have come in so far. We don't know if there was a specific problem. He accelerates now back out of the pit lane, and meanwhile Dario Franchitti, we gather, has he got past the phone? We'll check that as they come across the line. There's a battle going on there. JJ, however, is out of the race altogether now. So JJ Leto, no more for the Detroit Grand Prix. End of a tough weekend. I don't think he'll be too worried about that. It's just not come together at all this weekend for him, for Alan Langridge, the engineer, and for the whole Hogan Racing crew.
Yeah, disappointment there. That car is pushed away. The Woody Woodpecker car is pushed away. Here we are now on board with Gilles de Ferran, who is up behind Tony Kanaan in this battle. It's lost a little bit of ground there. It's at one of the cool cars there. It's such a tight battle this for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th position. Yeah,
it is Dario. He did get ahead of de Ferran, as confirmed as we see that shot. So Franchitti's back up to 7th place. De Ferran down to 8th position now, and still no one else has come into the pits, just indicating that, as we thought, it was too early really for a normal scheduled stop for Michael to be in the pit, so it would appear that he had some sort of trouble. Running without any caution periods so far in this race, completely different story to the 1997 event, which saw a whole series of yellow flag periods. So of course, if one comes along now, it will be quite nice for the teams in terms of perhaps just getting into their first pit stop window. But Gilles de Ferran at the moment just keeping an eye on Dario Franchitti and Tony Kanaan up ahead. There is Dario Franchitti driving another superb race. Milwaukee last weekend though, really great drive from the Scotsman. 19 laps completed then. Greg Moore's our leader from Alex Zanardi. Adrian Fernandez still in 3rd, Brian Herter 4th. Richie Hearn in 5th ahead of Tony Kanaan. Then Dario Franchitti back up to 7th. Gilles de Ferran in 8th place. 9th for Jimmy Vasser and 10th Christian Fittipaldi. Out of the race has gone JJ Leto. Sadly, they've got some sort of mechanical problems. We've got him down in the pit lane. Let's hear from him.
said that it was an ill-handling car. What finally did put you out?
Handling.
It was that bad you had to park it.
Oh yeah, it's better to bring it home in one piece, you know, than you know, hit it on the wall, you know, for nothing, you know, because it's just we were not competitive and we were just all over the place. I mean, we didn't have any grip, so it's just we had to park it.
The season started with such high expectations. Describe them now.
No, we still have high expectations, you know, and they will come. No problems.
Guys?
Well, JJ Leto, of course, having to watch Le Mans from this side of the water this occasion. The man who's gone very well at the 24-hour race in the past, now racing over here in the States. Let me tell you, though, you're looking at Franchitti, he's got past Tony Kanaan now. So Dario Franchitti is up into 6th position. So he continues his charge. There is Andre Ribeiro into the pits. Andre was running quite a long way down the order, not really featuring in the early stages of this race.
24th, in fact, Ribeiro was running before that pit stop. He is the second guy to make a pit stop, well, third really after Leto, because Michael Andretti, of course, was in a couple of laps ago, a change of tyres. He has rejoined now in 23rd position.
Scott Pruitt in 15th position. They got that car running okay in the end at the start. He did take his good position, and he runs in 15th, but quite a long way down. Don't forget his teammate, Adrian Fernandez, running very quickly. He's in 3rd position at the moment. And apparently they had to change the electronics, the spark box on the Scott Pruitt car before the start of the race. They managed to do it pretty quickly because he was able to get on the grid. That was pretty tight stuff for the Patrick Racing Crew. Bit of a panic there to get Scott Pruitt out, but thankfully it all worked out okay and he's in the race. But he's got a tough afternoon. Little Al comes into the pits now in the other of the Petskis. In fact, he's coming out and he's had his refueling already. 21 laps completed. Pretty much the first part of the fuel window to stop at lap number 21, but we should see the leaders beginning to make their stops now as well. Penske perhaps just getting in a fraction earlier.
And as the fuel load has lightened up on these cars, Greg Moore has been able to increase the pace again. He's into the 17s again now, 17.68 last time around. The tyres have obviously stabilised. They're certainly not getting any worse, and if there was a problem earlier on, then it seems to have settled down now, and Greg Moore is running a good pace. He and Alex Zanardi running exactly the same sort of lap times and able to maintain a gap of around about 7 seconds now over Adrian Fernandez.
Great fun to see, isn't it? Here is Zanardi again, and these two continuing this sort of game of cat and mouse at the moment. Nothing more serious than that. And soon they're going to be coming into the pits. There's the fuel window. We're very close to coming into the pit lane now. They will stretch it as far as possible, but that's why Zanardi now is making sure that he's right up with Greg Moore when they come into the pits. Nothing can be lost. They want to gain as much time as possible. We've certainly seen the Ganassi crew manage to do that on several occasions this year and over the last couple of years when they've won the Drivers' Championships first for Jimmy Vasser and then last year for Alex Zanardi. Good racing between these two. Adrian Fernandez dropped back quite a long way in 3rd. Zanardi getting as close as ever there. Fernandez is about 7 seconds behind these two. He's having a lonely race. He's 7 seconds behind these two and 7 seconds ahead of Brian Herter. Very even figures. There's Robbie Gordon in the pit lane.
Yeah, and behind Richie Hurd now is Dario Franchitti. Close right at the last lap. He gained a whole second on Richie Hurd. And there is the leader.
Greg Moore is into the pits. So Zanardi, I think, has stayed out there. And Moore comes into the pits as PJ Jones goes out. Zanardi stayed out now. Zanardi might be able to put in a few quick laps before he comes into the pits himself. He was being held up by Greg Moore. So the question is he going to be able to gain time by staying out there for a few laps? They're holding him, getting the rest of the fuel in. 12.2 seconds, and he has to be a bit careful. That last pit, it's a bit tricky getting out. It's a sharp turn. He rejoins just as Dario Franchitti comes around, I think it was, and that gives you an idea of how far ahead they were. Franchitti lying in 6th place, and Greg Moore rejoining around that position. Now the question is, how many laps is Alex Zanardi going to do out there before he comes in? Will he get more than one, do you think?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We'll see. It's some strategy being played there, certainly by Target Chip Ganassi Racing, and he will want to make up as much time as he can before coming into the pits.
17.9 was the last lap for Alex Zanardi. Now that he's got a clear track ahead of him, I wonder how quick this next lap is going to be. Is he going to prove that he has got a little bit of an edge over the players for Sidecar?
Yes, he is. He's staying out there. So there's one lap in the books more for Alex Zanardi. That's his 24 in the books now for him. He is in the lead at 1:16.8. Pretty quick lap.
Yeah, much faster. It's about a second faster, isn't it?
Yeah, he's really pulling out all the stops here, but he's been doing that, of course, all weekend. I mean, that is the Zanardi style, but he's also hit the wall a couple of times. And as Rob Hill, the crew chief, was talking to me this morning, he's hit every corner except for the right rear so far this weekend.
Adrian Fernandez comes in from what was second place at that point. Fuel going on board. Takes the time, 12.2 seconds for more. It's slower for Fernandez, 14.4 seconds, and that could be costly as they come back out. Bobby Rahal also coming into the pits at the same time, but Bobby running a long way down the order, 13th position just before coming in. Fernandez rejoins. A little bit tricky to see who he's come out with. There's Tony Kanaan. Oh, he gets it very sideways coming out. Be careful, Tony. Getting a bit carried away. On the speed limit button now, 60 miles an hour, and gets it out of the pit lane safely. Looks for a moment, though, he's going to spin it in the pit lane, which, of course, has been known before.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room there in the pits. He had to make sure he got out there before the next guys came through, and there isn't much room. Tony threaded his way through the needle there, and he's on his way again.
So Zanardi, is he going to be in this time around? It looked like he was on the radio button, and he comes in. So look at that, look at the amount of marbles out there on start-finish straight, but Zanardi comes into the pits now, and the Ganassi crew are ready to go, to do their work, to do what they do so well. Can they do it again? The pressure's on. In comes the car. 6 men go to work, changing a wheel at each corner. The fuel hose in, the breather hose is the other pipe that you see go in as well. The jacks are down. There's a change to the front wings there. They've adjusted the front wings and they wave them away 12.5 seconds. Now we're looking for Greg Moore. I wonder if Zanardi will be ahead of Moore, and he will be. I haven't seen Moore come past us yet. In fact, Moore seems to have lost a bit of time. There he goes, past us. So Zanardi is quite a long way ahead of Greg Moore after that pit stop. But of course, he's not leading the race because 1 or 2 have not yet stopped.
Including Dario Franchitti, who is out in the lead at this moment.
So, interesting situations happening here indeed. Dario Franchitti not yet in, but Paul Tracy's just been in. Richie Hearn's had a problem in the pits, I think, and they finally get him back out again. And now he tries to get out with Scott Pruitt, but they've lost time there, and that's a disappointment for Richie Hearn, who's been having a great drive, brilliant performance. Oh no, he's lost more. Wow! How did he get that one back?
Well, he's tried that once already this weekend. He did it in qualifying when he came out on slick tires and he lost it and hit the wall there. This time he didn't hit the wall, but boy, he came close, didn't he? Oh, a great save there by Richie Hearn.
It was almost exactly the same, wasn't it? We saw him running past us the other day when he lost it in the wet in exactly the same place. This time he just saved it. But that was real heart-in-mouth stuff, and we've got reports that it's beginning to rain, and that's possibly why he got so crossed up. There's a report of rain, and this is going to make life very, very interesting indeed. Some people have been into the pits, 1 or 2 haven't, but they're still going to have to be in for slicks. There's no way that they could put wets on. There's only a little tiny sprinkle if there is any, but reports of rain on some parts of the racetrack, so keep an eye out for that yourselves. See if you can spot any damp patches forming already. And Dario Franchitti is also in the pits at the moment. Gilles de Ferran gets out just ahead of him. Franchitti almost stalled it there. We get a view from our commentary box coming out, and there you see with Gilles. Look, watch this. He was a bit sideways coming out of the pits. Obviously a bit damp down there. Coming up to try and pass Brian Herter. Nothing much happens, and Brian Herter running around in 7th position at the moment. Alex Zanardi is the race leader. There he is now. Any raindrops on the camera there?
Doesn't seem to be anything. The clouds are pretty high. There's a few sort of scattered clouds around, and some dark clouds certainly, but if we do get into rain, I can't really see us getting a lot of it. But as I say, look out to the right there, so there's a pretty nasty looking cloud, but if it does rain, I can see only a very brief shower, which is certainly going to make things pretty interesting.
That's right. Yeah, they're on a street course now. Of course, they do use their wet tyres. They might not run in the wet on the ovals, but now they're onto the road courses and street courses. Then they just have to bolt the wets and get on with it. There's Zanardi, the lead over Greg Moore. The lead, 2.7 seconds last time around. Moore just getting past Alex Barron there, and that lost him a fraction of time. But in fact, Moore gained time on Zanardi on that last lap. Zanardi not going as quickly as Greg Moore at the moment, and that's an interesting situation.
Well, they pushed hard from the beginning of the race, and they seem to burn up their tyres a little bit. So I think Zanardi will be playing it a little bit cautiously, making sure he doesn't burn up those tyres too soon.
Still the same top 2 then. Michael Andretti, he had a problem with fuel tanks, and so it's obviously got some sort of difficulty in terms of refueling the car, apparently. He came in early anyway, so perhaps there's some other problem associated with that, and Michael finds himself down in 12th place at the moment. Let me just quickly run through your order. It's Zanardi from Moore, Fernandez 3rd, then Herta, De Ferran 5th, Canaan 6th, Franchitti 7th, Vassar 8th, Fittipaldi 9th, and Tracy 10th. In second place to Zanardi at the moment by 2 seconds. Adrian Fernandez still in 3rd place after that first round of stops. Brian Herta in 4th. Gilles de Ferran in 5th place, and you're on board with Gilles de Ferran at the moment. A good clean stop for the Walker Racing crew. Seen Gilles back out in 5th. Tony Kanaan in 6th position, and then Dario Franchitti in 7th. Jimmy Vassar 8th. Christian Fittipaldi in 9th. Paul Tracy in 10th, and Bobby Rahal. Michael Andretti, who has problems in terms of the refueling nozzle, had a difficulty getting all the fuel in on that first stop, and he came in early anyway, so Michael's going to be in trouble in terms of fuel mileage here this afternoon. Alonso Jr.'s 13th, Helio Castroneves 14th, Richie Hearn has dropped all the way down to 15th place now for Richie Hearn. It was a disastrous stop that they had in the pit lane, and what a great shame for Della Penna Motorsports. They've been running so well this weekend, and suddenly Richie finds himself down in 15th position. 16th place for Scott Pruitt, 17th for Patrick Carpentier. There you can see how the pit stops went. The comparison on times, Fernandez took a bit longer, but he was in a fairly distant 3rd anyway, and he still came out in 3rd position. The other 2 teams were very close. Moore's team, the Forsyth crew, fractionally faster, 0.3 of a second faster on that first stop. So now we get into the second stint of this race and begin to try and get into the rhythm of the race again. Gilles de Ferran there with Tony Kanaan not far behind.
And Gilles de Ferran is going very quickly. The last 3 laps, I've noticed that Gilles de Ferran has been the quickest guy on the racetrack, almost a second quicker than the race leader Alex Zanardi. He is though in 5th place, and Tony Kanaan is virtually matching his pace right behind. Brian Herta is the next car ahead of Gilles de Ferran as we're looking out of the front of this car. Can't quite see Brian Herta. He's about 3 seconds up the road.
So keep an eye on that gap between him and Brian Herta. 3 seconds at the moment, as you say. And that could be closing up a little bit if Gilles maintains this sort of pace. Still watching, still getting it a little bit crossed up. But Ferran keeping it under control nicely at the moment. But they are getting a report of fairly heavy bottoming. The bottom of the chassis just hitting the road quite hard, and that's causing a few little concerns and worries for the Walker Racing team. Coming around to complete another lap. Let's see if he's quick again as he goes across the line. Pretty good, not bad at all. 16.7 closes up the gap a little bit more to Herta. Although Herta did a 16.9, so not much difference between the 2 of them.
And the heavy brake in there for the new turn 3 is Gilles de Ferran. Comes out of that corner, leaves a bit of rubber down now on the exit, and this is turn 4. Pretty quick corner. There is Brian Herta's car. Here is Gilles de Ferran, and in the pit lane once again is Michael Andretti.
Yeah, this is going to be an extra stop for Michael to try and get the rest of the fuel on board, and they still don't think that that went in properly. What is going on for this team this year? It's disaster one after another, either from the team or from the driver, or a mixture of both. Everything just seems to be going wrong for them this season. None of the equations are working out right, and he's rejoined just ahead of Mark Blundell there. In fact, just check where we are with Mark Blundell just outside. He's in 19th position at the moment, ahead of Max Papis 20th, Robbie Gordon 21st, then PJ Jones and Andre Ribeiro. Tough day then for Mark Blundell. Maurizio Gugelmin also in trouble in this race, so Pac West having a really bad weekend again. They're just going to have to hope when they get to Portland next time out, the site of their first victory with Mark Blundell, that perhaps their luck will change. So back on board with Michael Andretti. Up the strand, building up to around 180 miles an hour, and then it's a tricky braking area. Braking on the turn, a little bit of power, and then braking again, and through the left-hander. This is the fuel nozzle of the Newman Haas crew, and this is what's causing them problems. They're trying to do emergency repairs down there, desperately trying to find a way to make that pit stop and the refueling process work properly so they can get some decent amount of fuel in his car.
There is Michael Andretti. He is back out there in now, what, 18th position, I reckon, and certainly a lot of ground to make up there. You've got the Sierra Wells car with Max Papis and Robbie Gordon behind him.
Now we're on board with Bobby Rahal, last appearance on this racetrack, of course, and Detroit has been a pretty kind place to him. He's raced at all the Detroit events. They, of course, did hold Grand Prix here in the past, and then they raced for the CART Championship. He was second on the old downtown circuits in 1990, 1991, and then when they came here to the Belle Isle track, it's only a few miles away from downtown, he won that first race, 1992, championship year for Bobby Rahal.
Yeah, and there is ahead of Bobby Rahal, who is running in 11th place. There's a great battle going on now for third position because Adrian Fernandez cannot get past the lapped car of Alex Barron. He's lost a lot of ground to the two leaders, and that in turn has enabled Brian Herter, Bobby Rahal's teammate, to close right up. A great battle going on there for third place. We'll get to that in just a moment.
Yes, and not far behind them is Gilles de Ferran as well. Fernandez apparently already complaining over the radio that Alex Barron hasn't moved out of his way sufficiently, getting quite upset about things.
Yeah, quite rightly so. He's lost 4 seconds over the last 4 laps, a little bit around about that, obviously 1 second per lap. That's a lot on this racetrack.
So Bobby Rahal over the bumps as they go out towards the straight. You can really see, it's great onboard pictures, the kickback through the steering. You really get an idea of how bumpy it is. Watch the crash helmet movements as well as Bobby Rahal tries to keep the machine under control. These are heavier cars, remember, than Formula One cars, and they react more over the bumps a little bit, and it's quite a pounding both the car and driver take. Now then, look at how close de Ferran is to the back of Brian Herter. There's Fernandez in the Ducati car.
He's finally got past Alex Barron, and now it's up to Brian Herter and Gilles de Ferran. Who are we on board with now? Looking at Herter there, that is Herter right ahead of him, and ahead of Herter is the lap car of Alex Barron.
Now we're going on to the long straight, the new straight. Now is this going to give Gilles de Ferran an opportunity to slipstream past Brian Herter with Alex Barron ahead of the two of them? Barron keeps well over to the left, or does he? Brian Herter thought about going past. This could be an opportunity for de Ferran. He could take advantage of the loss of momentum, but, well, there's not quite enough time to do it there. Again, Gilles gets it quite crossed up, lays some rubber down as he tries to accelerate and get past that car of Brian Herter. Adrian Fernandez at the head of this group. He's now got past these cars.
Yes, there's Gujamin there, also a lap down, and then Alex Barron, and then is Brian Herter looking for a way past that Renault Toyota. And Alex Barron is not making life easy at all for these guys. He's a lap down. He's running in 25th place, last position, I should say. And I really believe that he should be making things a little bit easier for those guys behind him.
So Fernandez gets some breathing space, if you like, as Gilles de Ferran still looking to take advantage of this situation and getting past Brian Herter. Herter still holds on to 4th place, and Gilles de Ferran 5th, remember, in 6th place for Tony Kanaan.
And there is Gujamin there, Alex Barron, and then this battle. There is Herter and de Ferran together, Kanaan and Frank Kiddy, and Vassar behind them. There's a great battle going on there down the position. There is Dario Franchitti, Kanaan and Franchitti, and Jimmy Vassar right behind them. We are on board again with Gilles de Ferran. But let me go back to the front of the field. Alex Zanardi is pulling well away from Greg Moore. He's pulling away at a second or more a lap, and there down the inside, all of Alex Barron goes Brian Herter.
Yes, so Herter's got past now. De Ferran tries to do the same. He does it, gets through in one fell swoop, so no time lost to Brian Herter in that one. They've both got to find a way past Maurizio Gujamin now, and then they can continue their chase of Adrian Fernandez. But this has given Fernandez the chance to just get away a little bit. Meanwhile, up front, Alex Zanardi has now completed 35 laps out of the 72, so we're nearly at half distance here. We've had our first stop still about halfway through the second stint. Moore's team apparently telling Greg to think about conserving fuel a little bit. They've got to watch the fuel mileage. There's been no yellow flags at all, no full course yellows anyway, which really is quite a surprise. But that means that they are going to be tight on fuel. They are going to have to watch that fuel mileage very, very closely indeed. Now Herter and de Ferran trying to find a way past Maurizio Gujamin. I wonder if Gujamin's going to move out of the way on the next sequence. He's coming through turns 1 and 2. Easy for him to move out of the way on this next blast down the long straight. And then perhaps these two can get on with their own little battle. Gujamin, is he going to keep over to the right as we look at it? Yeah, that gets Herter through. De Ferran also goes through. Well done, Maurizio Gujamin. He keeps well out of their way, and they can continue their own battle.
There's the experience of Maurizio Gujamin. He knows he's not in a fight for the lead here, even a fight for the top 20, unfortunately. Miserable weekend for the very likeable Brazilian driver. Things just not going well for that Pac West team. They cannot get a handle on this car.
No, they really, and every time they go testing, something goes wrong. They try to go testing at Mid-Ohio this last week, They got out the two cars out there, a lot of work to get them ready from Milwaukee. They had to change them from an oval spec to a road car spec, change suspension, all sorts of bits and pieces. They just got the cars out on track and the rain fell. And that's really been the story for Pac West this year. Every time they try and go anywhere, something goes wrong. Zanardi leads here after 36 laps. 38 laps have been completed, 34 laps still to go. Zanardi's advantage stretching over the Canadian. Fernandez in third position, and then Brian Herser in fourth, with Gilles de Ferran in fifth place, Tony Kanaan in sixth, and Dario Franchitti seventh. Then it's Jimmy Vasser, Christian Fittipaldi, Paul Tracy next up in 10th place. He was fastest in the warm-up this morning, Paul Tracy, but he struggled to really make much progress here today. Bobby Rahal in 11th, and then the 12th place for Helio Castro Neves, with Alonso Jr. just outside the points at the moment in 13th position. Alex Zanardi finding his way through the traffic fairly cleanly at the moment, and again 11 seconds the gap between himself and Moore, and that is because of fuel mileage as much as anything else. We're sure that Moore is just backing off a little bit. He didn't get so many laps to that first pit stop as Alex Zanardi, and that could be crucial, couldn't it, Jeremy?
Yeah, good. Well, yeah, we've got 72 laps in this race. 23 laps is all that Greg Moore managed to get on that first stint. So Alex Zanardi, he's going to be fine. He can come in again on lap 50, and he should be able to get to the end no problem. But if Greg Moore comes in again on lap 46, that's going to leave him 26 laps to get to the end of this race. That's a very tall order. So that is why we are seeing Greg Moore not being able to challenge Alex Zanardi at all at this stage in the race. And certainly everything is going Alex's way just now.
That's right, it is very controlled, very smooth for Alex Zanardi, and that lead over 11 seconds. It's the biggest advantage we've seen by miles all day, and he crosses the line coming up to Andre Ribeiro in a moment. We'll wait to see where Greg Moore is, see whether the gap remains much the same. And still waiting for Greg Moore to come past our commentary position. There he goes, and the gap 12 seconds now. So Greg really is taking it steady at the moment, and that fuel mileage that Alex Zanardi got on the first stint could make a huge difference to the outcome of this race. Getting all the way to 25 laps before stopping, 2 laps more than Greg Moore, absolutely crucial. It's a 2.3 mile track, and Zanardi no doubt driving with economy in mind all the time, but still putting in some pretty rapid laps, it has to be said.
Certainly is, and behind Greg Moore, though, the battle is heating up. Fernandez is still, he's about 5 seconds behind, but behind Fernandez is both Herter and de Ferran, who are closing in quite quickly. I think we've got a big battle brewing up here for third position pretty shortly, but here we are now on board again with the race leader, Alex Zanardi. That is the Penske of Andre Ribeiro ahead of him, about to go 1 lap down.
Just 3 cars out of the race, as you saw there, Leto, Meyer and Vitolo, and as you saw from the race summary, amazingly we still haven't seen any caution periods. Good news that so far. 40 laps completed, 31 laps still to go, and let's go on board with Christian Fittipaldi for a while. Christian's running quite a long way down in 9th position at the moment, but of course a lot better than Michael Andretti, who lost so much time with the extra pit stop and the fuel hose problems that have really put him out of the running altogether here. Christian just driving a nice, smooth, controlled race. Let's just ride on board for the moment, watch and listen as he takes us round this Belle Isle Park Raceway. Before we just come off the camera for a moment, PJ Jones is into the pits, so could be some sort of trouble there. It looks as though they're taking the engine cover off. It looks a little bit more serious than just refuel and put some tyres on that car. And PJ Jones, who's had a reasonably good run of finishes recently, they haven't had many retirements this year. Toyota engine a great deal more reliable than it was last season. And getting a few good performances. I have to say that that provisional pole for Max Papis on Friday, Jeremy, really was quite exciting, wasn't it? I mean, I know it was all down to the weather and the situation, but it was great to see Toyota able to say, hey, we were fastest today.
That's right, and you know, there were 14 other guys who had exactly the same conditions. The field, of course, is split into 2 for qualifying, split into 2 groups of 14, so there were 13 other guys in exactly the same conditions as Max Papis, and it really was a splendid effort by the Italian driver, and he put one over really on a lot of people, including, of course, his much wanted teammate Robbie Gordon, who's been on the pole here before, and there, of course, is Max Papis cruising into the pit lane. Looks very slow for him.
Yeah, it looks as though the man who we're talking about, who took pole on Friday, It looks as though that's come to a halt. He's coasting it in, isn't he? So he looks as though he's shut it down.
Yes, maybe he was out of fuel, of course.
Yeah.
He could have been out of fuel.
It looks as
42 laps is very early, unless they had a major problem at the first stop, because he came in on lap 24, so he's only done 18 laps on his tank of fuel. That's not very much.
Unless he had a similar problem to Michael Andretti. Perhaps they didn't get all the fuel on board that car, and therefore they misread how much was in it. And perhaps that's the cause of that little coast into the pit lane. He is starting again. I can see him getting away from his pit box. And so it looks simply as though it was fuel, and that means they didn't get the right amount of fuel on board in that last stop. One other thing we wanted to talk about a bit, Jeremy, and it's a good opportunity with the onboard cameras. We can see the drivers fighting with the steering when they're putting the power down. There was quite a lot of talk that for this race, the teams would be using traction control. It was an issue that came up at Long Beach earlier in the season. Looking at the cars, though, it doesn't really look as though anybody's running it. Hard to say, of course.
Yeah, there certainly was a lot of controversy, particularly as you say at Long Beach, and there's been a lot of discussion amongst the CART officials and the engine manufacturers. In actual fact, CART has just hired a policeman, effectively, to...
there's a tip there, Fittipaldi. Just been hit by Paul Tracy. Sorry to interrupt you, but an incident there as Christian Fittipaldi Paul Tracy tried to get past Christian, and it's just pirouetted him around, and that was the battle that was going on for 10th position. And well, we haven't seen an incident for a long time in this race now. Are they going to have to bring out a full caution, or are the workers at that corner going to be able to get him out of the way, as we saw with Arndt Meyer's car earlier when the engine expired on his machine? Oh dear, look how close.
That is Greg Moore, was it? Was that Greg Moore?
I'm not sure. It could have been Carpentier. It's difficult to tell which one of those it was.
It wasn't.
And it is full course yellow. Now then, interesting. This is an interesting situation. We've done 43 laps. Who's going to decide to stop on this full course yellow? It's a little bit too early, really, for what they want. And this could really throw the thing wide open as Alex Zanardi. Is he going to come into the pits? They've got to decide. Yes, he does, but he won't be able to get through on just one more stop, not unless there's a whole load of yellows later on in the race. He is going to have to go a long way. We've still got some 28 laps to go. 28 laps. He managed 25 in that first stint. Oh dear, oh dear. It looks as though we're going to get into one of those races again where the fuel is going to be critical at the end.
Oh, it is. It depends how long this caution really lasts. But there is a good service once again by Rob Hill. There he, wait, he says. There is Greg Moore, and Rob Hill throws his hands up in frustration there, but it's really irrelevant. He still gets out in the lead, does Alex Zanardi. He's got a huge lead over this man, Greg Moore. Service being completed by the players' crew, and Moore is still the fuel weight. It seems to take an eternity, doesn't it, to go?
There's a problem there again, though, Jeremy. It shouldn't be taking this long. Look, they're moving the hose. They can't believe it. How many people have got a problem with fuel hoses this weekend? We haven't seen these sort of troubles anywhere else this year. I know Dario Franchitti actually had the same problem here last year, which cost him a great deal of time. But what is going on with these refueling rigs? Everything seems to be happening and no fuel's going aboard.
Very, very strange indeed.
Oh, there's Volkswagen going down the pits there. Helio Castroneves hit one of the All-American races. I think it was Alex Barron. No pictures on our screen, I'm afraid. We were just looking at the commentary box, and they're all about 3 abreast trying to get out. I think they got away with it. And Alex Zanardi is still leading here. Back in the race, Alex Zanardi, our race leader. We're under caution for the first time in this race, and that was as a result of contact between Paul Tracy and Christian Fittipaldi in the battle over 10th position. And that has allowed all of the front runners into the pits to make a stop. We see Zanardi leading. Fernandez has come up to second. De Ferran is now third, and poor Greg Moore is down to 4th position as a result of a dreadful stop, and the fuel hose didn't seem to deliver. Didn't get that fuel in there.
Brian Herder also a problem. He's fallen from 4th place back to 7th, so problems all around there. Meanwhile, a great stop for Dario Franchitti. He vaulted ahead there of Tony Kanaan. So we'll reset the order for you. There you can see the top half dozen. There's Zanardi, Fernandez, De Ferran, Moore, Franchitti and Kanaan. Behind them is Herder, Vassar, Tracy. Helio Castroneves rounds out the top 10. Then Bobby Rahal, Richie Hearn, Scott Pruitt, Al Unser Jr., Patrick Carpentier 15th. Then Michel Jourdain Jr., Michael Andretti, who's having a horrible day, and Mark Blundell and Robbie Gordon in 19th. They're the cars on the lead lap.
So here we go, ready to undergo the restart. Now there are 27 laps to go. A little bit less than that now as they come round. It'll be 26 to go as they take the green. 26 laps. They've done a couple of laps under yellow. Fuel economy is going to be absolutely crucial.
Yeah, and on the first stint, the two who went the longest were Dario Franchitti and Gilles de Ferran. They both managed 26 laps of green flag racing. Zanardi and most of the rest of the field managed 25.
But what's the common link there, Jeremy? It's the Honda engine. It looks as though the Honda engine is getting excellent mileage here. Zanardi showed it that he got a lot more mileage than Greg Moore, and if de Ferran and Franchitti were the ones who stretched it further, we'll have to keep an eye on them. Watch this battle at the restart though, as de Ferran tries to get past Fernandez. And Zanardi's got Canaan. Look at Canaan. He's disappeared nearly down the escape road there.
Yeah, he was alongside the outside of Dario Franchitti. That did cause a huge pile-up behind him, didn't he, almost? He was on the outside line, as he was on the first lap of the race, you remember, and he couldn't quite get tucked back in, so he lost several positions there, did Tony Canaan.
So it's a bad restart for Canaan. A little bit of smoke there, somebody locking up the brakes, but nothing more major than that. Zanardi getting away extremely well under the green flag, and his main rival, let's take another look at this. Look at Canaan was on the outside of Franchitti there, and he just locked it up, just got wide. Did a good job of recovering it, I have to say, but of course caused a massive traffic jam. Everyone else piling in fact...
Yeah, it's Gugelmin did the same thing behind him. Gugelmin, of course, a lap down, just having a horrible weekend. And but all's well that ends well. Everybody seemed to get away with it all.
Oh, well, just about. It was pretty close, wasn't it? Looks as though we were going to get more problems there, but Canaan recovers. He's behind Paul Tracy now, so that really has dropped him down the order. Great shame. Zanardi crosses the line, 47 laps in the books. 2.5 seconds ahead of Fernandez at the end of just that one flying lap. Then it's de Ferran in third, Greg Moore in fourth position, and then fifth place for Franchitti, sixth for Herder, seventh for Vassar, eighth for Tracy now, ninth for Canaan, so he's dropped all the way down to ninth position, and 10th place for Helio Castro Neves. On board with Alex Zanardi. Last lap was a 19.9, and good lot quicker than anyone else on that last lap. In fact, over a second faster than anyone else managed.
And I think that's because Andre Ribeiro is actually ahead of Adrian Fernandez and holding up the Mexican driver there. Ribeiro a lap down, but ahead of the second place car. Good news for this man, Alex Zanardi.
Nice clear track ahead of him. Look at this. That's the beauty of the restart. When you're leading, then you have a good opportunity, and I think that's something that Alex is going to make the most of here. Clear track and just try and open up an advantage, and then he'll have to go into fuel economy mode. Now, interesting reports from the Forsyth crew is that all the fuel from their tank has gone into the car. Now that's interesting. They managed to get the whole load of fuel. So even if they wanted to do a splash and dash, they can't now.
Well, that's interesting. It's a tough racetrack, this one. The engines are really worked very, very hard indeed. They have to use all the mileage they can get. Every bit of fuel consumption is required to get around this racetrack. And of course, you just alluded to it a couple of minutes ago. We've had just that one caution flag of 3 laps. Generally, you can rely upon several lengthy cautions at this place, and that, of course, helps your fuel consumption. But each team was allocated fuel on the basis of a minimum consumption of 1.85 miles to the gallon. And these 900 horsepower engines use a lot of fuel.
They do. They certainly get through it at a prodigious rate. Of course, on the caution periods, they can set the fuel to a very lean setting. It allows them to use as little fuel as possible when they're cruising around behind the pace car. But obviously using a lot of fuel now to racing speed. Al Unser Jr. is out of the race, and we've got an interview coming up with him down in the pit lane. It's proving to be another unfortunate weekend for the Penske concern. He had a good third place finish last time out in Milwaukee. It's not happening this time.
Things that you don't like to do is get debriefed before the race is over, but that's the case for you, Al Jr. What happened?
Yeah, it was the gearbox. The gearbox went away on it, and you know, we lost fourth gear, and then we started losing the other gears. So,
Al, the season started with so much anticipation, so much excitement. What about now?
well, I mean, you know, we got this new gearbox, and these are some of the things that's going to go on with us. And you know, like I said, I just caught the dogs a couple times in fourth gear, and that's all it took. So, you know, we'll go home, we'll figure out what's wrong with it, and go from there.
Bob?
Well, disappointment for Al Unser Jr. once again. Sadly, the car seems to be working on some of the ovals, but still haven't got a setup or reliability, in fact, on the road courses.
And disappointment there for Penske Racing, and of course Penske cars in pool. I know a lot of people are tuning in to watch this race, the live coverage, and disappointment for them, particularly with Andre Ribeiro also out of contention. He's a lap down. He's actually in second place on the road, but unfortunately he's a lap down. And I know there's a lot of people tuning in England, and all the Reynard guys are watching in the shop as well down there in Bicester. So they've got plenty to cheer about there. Man, Alex Zanardi out in the lead of this race, and there is Andre Ribeiro, who's actually keeping pace now with the race leader.
Well, it's an interesting situation, this one. Oh, look, a blow-up for Richie Hearn. Richie Hearn has expired his Ford engine. Now, this could cause another caution if there's oil around. And whether they can get that car out of the way, I doubt. He's brought it to a halt, a smoke screen behind him. That's what caused the incident for Moore last week when he hit the back of Gugelmin. There's a lot of smoke around, and that could have laid some oil down. They may well have to bring out a full course yellow to go and put some dust down to try and soak up the oil. Look at that. It really has expired big time, hasn't it? And Richie Hearn, who had such a good run earlier on, a disappointing end to this one. So Richie Hearn, there is a full course yellow being called, and that certainly makes the fuel consumption worries just a little less. The view looking down over the cars as they continue behind the pace car for the moment. And this is our second caution period of the day, caused by the engine failure to Richie Hearn's Swift. The Ford Cosworth engine in the back of his car expired big time. Zanardi, our race leader, ahead of Adrian Fernandez, Gilles de Ferran, then Greg Moore. Moore with a full tank of fuel, a very full tank of fuel, according to the reports. There is Hearn's car, by the way, still smoking away merrily as it's been brought back to the pits. But Greg Moore with a full tank of fuel should be okay in terms of fuel, but it lost him a lot of time in that last stop. And the others now have another lap or two of yellow flag to conserve fuel and hopefully then be able to open it up for the rest of the race.
Yeah, I certainly think that Greg Moore is going to have a hard time pushing hard, judging by his fuel consumption the first part of the race. And we'll see what gives way. That is all the fuel there is left in the tank of Adrian Fernandez. There's there's probably 2 or 3 gallons there, and that could well be significant at the end of this race. But certainly Fernandez seemed to have pretty good fuel consumption. He came in on for his first stop on lap 24. That's about average. 24-25 was where most people came in, and in hopes that those 2 or 3 gallons will not prove to be crucial for Adrian Fernandez.
That's right, yes. It could be a tricky situation, but they've got another lap under yellow here still to go. The pace car lights still on at the moment. We'll have to wait and see whether they get those switched off before the end of the lap and restart. Another lap of yellow will be very, very important. 20 laps still to go. Let's take a look at what's been happening in this race. Our race leader is Alex Zanardi. There's been only 2 leaders in this race, and that's been either Greg Moore or Alex Zanardi, just the one change of lead. 2 caution periods, in fact, now, because this is our second caution period that we're on, and it's only been over a couple of laps. But out, we've seen 6 cars. There you are: Richie Hearn, Alonso Jr., PJ Jones, JJ Leto, Arndt Meyer, and Dennis Vitolo. They're just trying to clean the track up a little bit there. There are so many marbles out there, the little chunks of tyre that get thrown off as they go through the race, and they're just trying to blow some of those out of the way.
Yeah, it's one of the consequences of this tyre war between Goodyear and Firestone, and there is a lot of marbles. We can see them in front of us here in turn 1, and there is the blower there out on the back part of the track, just trying to clean away some of the worst of it.
Of course, that makes overtaking very difficult when you're not actually on the racing line. Great view there, really, of the marbles in the background, and those little chunks of rubber. If you get the car onto those, of course, there's really very little grip. It really is like being on marbles.
Yeah, plus the hot tyres on the car tend to pick up all those bits of rubber as well. It just draws them in like a magnet, and then once you get back onto a clean part of the racetrack, those little bits, those bullets, effectively start flying off the car tyre, and they go all over the place, and they can cause all sorts of things. You get some pretty big chunks of rubber in there, and when you're following somebody who's trying to get rid of those marbles off the tyres, it's quite nasty.
So Zanardi, our race leader, we're looking for another bit of yellow just to save the fuel for the rest of this race. Zanardi then, 53 laps completed now, just 19 laps to go. The fuel consumption worries should be over thanks to this period of caution. He leads the race ahead of Adrian Fernandez. You can see Andre Ribeiro actually on the road there, but he's a lap down or more. Gilles de Ferran's in 3rd place. Greg Moore down to 4th position. Dario Franchitti in a fairly strong 5th place with Brian Herder 6th. Then Jimmy Vasser, the second of the Ganassi cars, up in the top 10. He's in 7th place, with Paul Tracy making it 2 Team Green cars up in the top 10 as well. He's 8th. Tony Kanaan is 9th, and then Helio Castro-Neves in 10th place. The one finger side, they've got Richie Hearn's car in very quickly, but they have spent a little bit of time trying to clean the track up somewhat, but they have just now one more lap to go before we go back to proper racing, and there'll be 17 laps to go then to the checkered flag. So Zanardi, can he keep control now? I suppose the fact that Greg Moore's been struggling on fuel, and the fact that Fernandez really hasn't shown the sort of pace that both Zanardi and Moore did in the early part of the race, you have to say Zanardi looks in great shape here.
Certainly does, and it would be another welcome triumph for him. He's already got 10 wins in his previous 39 starts, so a tremendous record that Alex Zanardi has built up over the last 2.5 seasons of the FedEx Championship Series. They've done those cars out of the race. Richie Hearn, of course, the last guy out, to a massive blow up there. But certainly we've got, as you say, 17 laps it will be when they come past to take the green flag, and they should be able to run to the end pretty hard without worrying too much about the fuel consumption. Yes, look at this, there is the marbles there offline in one of the corners, well off the line there, I think. But to look at just that, you can see on the outside of the turn there as well, it's quite remarkable, isn't it, how much rubber that is by the start-finish line. And from there down towards turn 1 is a potential out-braking place on the inside if you can get a clean run. I don't know whether you can get a clean run there, though.
No, I think it's a pretty dirty run, isn't it? I mean, if you get onto that stuff, as you said before, you're going to pick up a lot of that onto your tyres. The car's going to handle terribly, and I think Alex Zanardi will just be focusing on staying on the clean part of track, being careful when going past slower cars, but of course this period of caution will help him on that because it stacks everybody up together and he'll have some nice clear track for a while.
Yeah, and not only that, of course, he has that lapped car, the luxury of Andre Ribeiro, sitting between himself and the second place car of Adrian Fernandez. And there Adrian Fernandez, we haven't talked about him a whole lot this afternoon, but once again, tremendous effort by the Mexican driver. He's been very, very consistent this season. He did make that one mistake at Nazareth when he fell off the road, slid off on the first lap on cold tyres, but he atoned for that with a couple of very good runs indeed, and once his engine blew up at Gateway, but he's been very strong this season. He's done a superb job, and now just a few corners to go before we get ready for the restart.
Right, here we go then into the last part of the race. This is where it begins to really hot up now, because Alex Zanardi, looking for his 3rd win of the season, gets it a bit sideways. Watch a few cars in the background. Look at Jimmy Vasser, several of them really getting the car out of shape as they come to take the green flag, and the race gets underway again with 17 laps to go. The fuel consumption worries should be out of the window now. They can go to full rich mixture and really begin to attack, with Zanardi in great shape with the buffer of Andre Ribeiro between him and second place man Fernandez. Look at Greg Moore and Dario Franchitti. Dario Franchitti just going ahead of Greg Moore there. So a great move from Franchitti. That's put him in 4th place.
And just behind those two as well, Jimmy Vasser just squeezed inside Brian Herder down here on the braking for turn 1. We thought maybe it was possible. It was for Jimmy Vasser. Great move down the inside for Vasser.
Now look at Franchitti. He looks very, very fired up indeed as he comes along the strand. He's got Gilles de Ferran next one, but they're all close together now. He can see Adrian Fernandez in 2nd place only a little. Oh, and Marc Blondel's gone off. Marc Blondel has gone straight on down at turn 7.
Yeah, he's turned 6. He's been off there 3 times this weekend. We saw him, I was out there for practice on Friday morning with the motoring news correspondent David Phillips, and we saw Mark the car just snapped sideways on him under braking, and he hit the wall on the left-hand side of the road and just took him straight into the tyres. Looks like the same thing happened there.
Yeah, there's reports that he's been complaining about his throttle to the crew over the last couple of laps. Perhaps he's had a bit of a sticky throttle, and that could have caused the car to push on, but we'll have to wait and see. We might get the chance to have a replay of the incident there that's taken Marc Blondel out, but it hasn't caused a full course yellow. They managed to sort the car out there and then. It wasn't really damaged, but off course. Let's take a look. Oh, actually, that's a very strange accident. Did you see that? Did he get touched by Papis? The car just suddenly turned left on a straight, really. He was on the power there, but even so, that was a very strange incident.
Yeah, another miserable weekend for Marc Blondel. He's just not been happy with that car, and I don't know what happened there. It looked very odd indeed.
Very strange. It looked as though he got the car out of the previous corner, got on the power, and the car just stepped away. Difficult to tell whether there was any contact. I wouldn't have thought that Papis nerfed him at the up the gearbox on that particular corner, but very difficult to see.
Pepys actually had come into the pits during that last caution and came out behind Mark Blundell. So let's have another look at that and see if we can see what's happening again. One more replay, I think, coming up here, and you can see that Mark Blundell is behind Max Papis. No, there's definitely some ground between. It's very slippery there. It's very bumpy too on the exit of that corner.
That right rear was locked up though, Jeremy. That right rear was actually locked as he headed towards it. Laid a big line of rubber. I think something broke at the right rear.
Yeah, it definitely looked like it, didn't it, Ben?
Something very odd went on there. I don't think Papis hit him, but I think something broke on the right rear, perhaps wheel bearing or upright. In fact, Dario Franchitti had an upright brake in practice, in qualifying. Perhaps something like that occurred to Mark Blundell. It certainly looked like some sort of mechanical failure that pitched Mark into the wall to end what has been another disappointing weekend for him. And I'm sure he'll be happy to get back to Portland next week. The side of his first victory last year was desperate to try and get some sort of performance out of the Pac West car. There he is, back into the pits. He's actually managed to drive it back round, which is fairly impressive considering he actually made contact with the wall. It was a long way away though. He probably decided it was a bit too far to walk, so he's managed to drag it back to the pits, and that's the end of his afternoon's work. Back to the action then. Adrian Fernandez there in second place, still remember, still fending off Gilles de Ferran. Dario Franchitti still in that battle too.
Yeah, and easily fending off Franchitti. And let's look here at Andre Ribeiro. He's really running a fast pace there, absolutely keeping pace with the race leader Alex Zanardi. Just to wonder how and why Andre lost that lap in the early stage of the race, because he had to start from pretty much the back of the pack because of some gearbox problems in qualifying. But that car running very, very well indeed right now, and that's a great boost for Marlboro Team Penske to be running so well on this street course.
Yes, they've really got the handle on it by the looks of things. He's staying with Alex Zanardi. Zanardi, no doubt, slightly surprised as he slides it out of turn 2. I didn't think Ribeiro would do anything about trying to overtake, although, of course, it might get him back onto the lead lap, so that would be useful. But he doesn't want to take too many risks, I shouldn't think, at this point. Fernandez comes through to Ferran and Franchitti very close together there as they come out of 3 and 4. A very tight battle between those two. Both Honda powered there. You're looking at Fernandez with the Ford power, fastest in some of the practice sessions across the speed traps, that's for sure, and running a very consistent race here in second position. Honda power leads at the moment for Zanardi. Ford power in second place with Fernandez. Third place and fourth for that matter, Honda power with De Ferran and Franchitti.
And who set the fastest lap on that last time around? Andre Ribeiro, 1:17.33. The race leader, 1:17.54. As I say, great sign for Marlboro Team Penske, but there is Alex Zanardi. He's got a pretty comfortable cushion now, and Andre Ribeiro is in there between him and the second place car of Adrian Fernandez, and Fernandez can't do anything about Ribeiro, let alone Alex Zanardi.
So 14 laps still to go. The Ganassi crew just sit and wait now. The fuel consumption should be okay. They had enough yellow flag to make sure that he makes it through to the end without needing to come into the pits again. Now they've just got to focus on not making any mistakes. This kind of track punishes you so severely if you do anything wrong. Just a foot offline, miss an apex, you're in the concrete wall and it's all over. So Zanardi will be very conscious of maintaining concentration. It's been a fairly long afternoon already. They've been flat out most of the time. They haven't had much time to rest. There is Dario Franchitti still applying that pressure to Gilles de Ferran as Zanardi leads them back out onto the backstretch, onto the strand, the long curving straight, which still sees speeds of over 180 miles an hour before getting hard on the brakes into the right-hander. Ribeiro really staying right with him, isn't he?
Certainly is. He's showing tremendous form here, and it is a great sign because they've been quick-ish this weekend, and it shows it's a good sign too for Goodyear's, of course. They've been pretty much outpaced, certainly in qualifying by Firestone, which took the top 8 positions on the grid. But there is Andre Ribeiro now maintaining pace with the race leader, and Fernandez behind him, and then Gilles de Ferran also, of course, on Goodyear tyres.
That's right, yeah, Ferran, the first of the Goodyear runners in terms of overall position at the moment, in third place. The other one's not doing quite so well. Remember, Michael Andretti has had his variety of problems here this afternoon, and he's way down in 11th position. Having said that, neither he nor Christian Fittipaldi really have shown much great pace here this weekend. And that was a little bit the story of last year. They didn't always get the car to work well on the street courses. And I wonder if that's a similar situation with the Swift chassis for 1998 as well. Andretti has been in great shape on some of the other tracks. In fact, at Long Beach, he seemed to be fairly quick. So perhaps it's too early to say whether the Swift is working on this kind of track or not. Zanardi and Ribeiro. Ribeiro, remember, a lap down, still running in 17th place. But showing that this new Penske is a car that can work, given a chance, and perhaps just that little bit more development, that little bit more time spent with it. Don't forget that this year's Reynard is very much an evolution of last year's car. They didn't really change a great deal, some aerodynamic tweaks, bits here and there. And the teams know what they're doing. They know what to do. If it's not working somewhere, they've got quick fixes all the time. For Penske with a new car, if it's not working, they have to start from a clean sheet of paper. They don't know where to begin.
Absolutely right. A huge database of information for the Reynard teams to draw from, and it shows. I mean, that's why there are so many Reynards up at the front, and they're able really to learn from even what the other teams are doing, even though they can't see each other's set up information.
That's right. One of the differences between the way Reynards have approached the whole operation to the way that perhaps March and Lola approach it in past years is Reynard don't have a works team as such. They gain information from everybody, but they give information to everybody as well. It's very fairly done. The team's very happy about the sort of help, the sort of guidance they get from Reynard. And that no doubt explains part of the success they have in dominating the numbers in terms of chassis here in the world of the FedEx CART Championship. Alex Zanardi still maintaining the lead with 11 laps to go. Great onboard shot looking back at Andre Gate. You can see all these changes of surface when you have this picture as well. It goes from sort of dark grey to a sort of fawny colour and then back again. So many changes of surface around this place.
To see there from that rear view camera that Ribeiro really closed up under braking down on that concrete into that tight corner there at turn 11, and he was really all over Alex Zanardi. I'm sure Zanardi, he likes to have him there, but he doesn't want him too close, I don't think.
No, he's going to get a bit concerned. I mean, the last thing he wants Andre to do at this point is to lock a brake under severe braking for one of the tighter corners and run into the back of him. That really would be slightly disastrous. 10 laps still to go. 10 times around this 2.3 mile track, revised for this year, and definitely proving to be a good revision. The driver's very happy about it. We have seen a few overtaking opportunities come up because of the changes to the track. Although Zanardi really has controlled this race, certainly from the 1/3 distance when we had the first pit stops. Greg Moore was leading up until that point, of course, but then dropped back on the pit stop effectively, and then really dropped away trying to conserve fuel, and then he had that disastrous second pit stop that has dropped him down into what is now 5th place. So in terms of the championship, of course, very critical, because Zanardi's got a chance of gaining quite a lot of ground on Greg Moore in the series, already 6 points ahead, 20 points on offer here, and he would have led presumably the most laps, so that would be the extra point for that as well, and that's all going to make a difference as the championship goes through.
And then of course we'll even out the point that Greg Moore won for winning the pole, and as you say, every point is absolutely crucial, and this is certainly a great drive by Alex Zanardi, because he really struggled with the car this weekend. He really wasn't terribly happy with it in any of the sessions, and as we talked about earlier on, a couple of incidents, including one this morning in the warm-up where he sideswiped the wall coming out of turn 11 and damaged both corners on the left-hand side of the car, so to target Chip Ganassi through having to work quite hard there to make sure that that left side of the car was properly repaired, to change all the suspension components, and Zanardi now is doing a beautiful job this afternoon.
Yeah, he certainly is. He's just controlling this race, 1.5 seconds ahead of Fernandez, with Ribeiro, of course, between them. And Ribeiro still lapping at the same pace of 17.3 on that last lap from Andre Ribeiro, 17.2 for Fernandez, 17.4 for De Ferran, 17.0 for Dario Franchitti. So Franchitti had the honours on that particular lap of the fastest one. And Franchitti running competitively in 4th place, still just 0.6 of a second behind De Ferran the last time they came around. So still a chance for a change there, I would say, if Dario's feeling as brave and as committed as he was last weekend in Milwaukee, where he was overtaking just about everywhere, then there's a chance that he could still get on the podium here today. Zanardi then with his advantage up to 2.5 seconds. 63 laps completed, just 8 laps to go. We're into the final countdown now. Zanardi, Fernandez, De Ferran, Franchitti, Moore and Vassar, as you can see, our top 6 positions. And look at the onboard camera with the race leader Alex Zanardi controlling this race and stretching out the advantage over Adrian Fernandez. Really has been a beautifully controlled, beautifully driven event so far from Alex Zanardi, and just what he needs in terms of chasing the championship. Already 2 wins so far this year. We had a very open start to the season with a number of different winners. Alex was the first driver to become a 2-time winner this season, and now it looks as though he's going to become a 3-time winner. Winner in Gateway, winner in Long Beach. Long Beach, of course, the only other street track that we've had so far this season. And Alex controlled the race there, and it looks pretty much like he's going to do the same thing here. Makes up a little bit for last year, perhaps, where he went out in the first corner after qualifying in 4th position. And this time, everything has gone pretty much according to plan.
Very much so. He's really put the hammer down these last few laps, back down into 1 minute 16s. Clearly, he's been told by the pit crew, fuel is no problem. You can pull away, you can give yourself a comfortable margin, and that's exactly what he's done. A string of 4 or 5 very, very fast laps for Alex Zanardi, and the only guy who really can keep pace with him is Andre Ribeiro. Only those two are lapping in the 1 minute 16s.
That's pretty impressive, isn't it? Andre Ribeiro in the Penske, we thought he was struggling in this race, but in fact doing very quick lap time still. That was a 1:17.0 last time round from Ribeiro, and a 1:16.3 from Alex Zanardi, so he really is beginning to go for it now. Meanwhile, there's Greg Moore. There's still some confusion as to exactly how much fuel is in that car. They reckon they had emptied the whole tank, the whole pit tank into the fuel tank in the car, and then they discovered there was some misreading on the instrumentation there, and so they're still a little bit confused. Hopefully Moore is going to be all right to make it to the end, but he's had a couple of races now where the luck quite hasn't gone his way. He's running in 5th position, and that obviously only scored him 10 points rather than the 21 points that Zanardi looks set to score. And that's going to open up just that little bit more of an advantage for the Italian. Oh, a bit sideways, isn't it?
Yeah, all those changes of surface there. It really is pretty treacherous around that casino section. It's like the old casino there that stands in this ground actually now houses the press room for the IGT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix. And here is Alex now through those last couple of corners there and back up toward the start-finish line one more time. That is 68 laps in the books. That is just 4 to go now for Alex Zanardi.
So very close indeed to scoring the 3rd win of the season, and the Ganassi train continues to roll. They just are in such great form as an entire team at the moment. Jimmy Vassar in 6th place at the moment, so the winner of the last race from Milwaukee, not having quite such a competitive run here, but nonetheless staying up there in terms of points. He lies 3rd place in the championship, and although he would rather be up there, of course, at least he's still in the hunt. And he's just been told that he can richen the mixture up, apparently. The pit radios confirming that Ganassi beginning to ask Vassar to try and gain a few more places. And Greg Moore definitely nursing his car home. Still not quite sure how much fuel they've got in it. And that is going to be a battle for 5th. Moore is only just ahead of Vassar on the road at the moment, so that could be quite fun. Paul Tracy, meanwhile, is in 7th position. Brian Herter 8th, Tony Kanaan 9th. Then Scott Pruitt in 10th. And the final 2-point scoring drivers at the moment are Michael Andretti in 11th and Bobby Rahal in 12th position. And there is Adrian Fernandez. He's driven a great race, hasn't he? He's really just done his own thing. He's been smooth, controlled all the way through. No mistakes so far. And that's exactly what he needs to get his championship chase back on course, if you like. Lost out a little bit in the last couple of races.
Yeah, it's been a little bit unfortunate, but certainly a super drive here today by the Mexican. He's not put a wheel wrong. He has been very consistent. He's been competitive all weekend, and that is very, very good points for Patrick Racing.
Definitely, yes. Let's just remind you, at a 6th place of the season opener in Homestead. He won the race in Japan. He was 4th in Long Beach. Had an accident then in Nazareth on that first lap. Just lost it on cold tyres, which was such a disappointment. In Rio, though, he bounced. Oh, and Brian Herter. Brian Herter's gone down the escape road. It looks like an engine problem, though, that's taken him down there. Steam pouring out of his motor, and that looks like the end of the day, very much so, for Brian Herter and the Ford engine in the back of the Team Rahal machine. Herter was running in 8th place. That will move Tony Kanaan up into 8th, and that brings Helio Castro Neves now up into the points, up into 12th position. So what a shame. Let's take a look. Well, there's certainly plenty of smoke further back, wasn't there?
Switches it off there and just cruises it down into the escape road. down at the end of the long straightaway in turn 3, and bitter disappointment for Brian Herder. He had been running, as you say, in 8th place. He wanted to do better than that. He had a poor pit stop earlier on, which cost him a lot of positions. He'd been running 4th in the early stages, right behind Adrian Fernandez. So a huge blow there for the championship aspirations of Brian Herder.
Yeah, that's right. Tough season for them. 2 laps to go just for Alex Zanardi. Got himself a nice cushion over Andre Ribeiro now, so doesn't have to worry about any cars being too close to him at the moment. And all set to take win number 3 this season. Now, of course, we're going into a whole string of road course races now. And you have to wonder, we saw last year, Zanardi really didn't perform that well on the ovals. But what he did do, once we got to this part of the season, was he started picking up the points. And towards the end of the year on the road courses, he was in absolutely dominant form. And that's really how he won the championship. Now, is he going to start off another sequence of road course victories? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Greg Moore obviously was in the hunt today. Fuel consumption, however, didn't seem to be quite so good. And that could be a telling point as we go through the rest of this season.
Alex Zanardi accelerates one more time off turn 11 up to turns 12 and 13. This double apex right-hander. We're looking back there. There is the battle for 3rd position. 2nd, 3rd and 4th with Fernandez. There is Gilles de Ferran, the Valvoline car. And behind Gilles de Ferran is Dario Franchitti. White flag though, Alex Zanardi.
On to the final lap then, and Alex Zanardi just has the 2.3 miles to go now to score win number 3. It'll be his 11th win of his career. It really is a tremendous strike rate for the man who took last year's championship with some 5 victories. Well, with this 3rd win, he's already over halfway to what he achieved last year in terms of race victories, much earlier in the season as well. But this time last year, he really had been struggling a little bit. So Zanardi seems to have got himself so well psyched up this year to defend the title. So often you see a champion come back and perhaps not so motivated, but with Zanardi you always get the feeling that the hunger is there. He is so determined to win. That's all it counts for him, is winning races. And the fire is still there just as much as it was last year, and just as much as it has been all the way through his career. He is greedy for race victories, and he's driven absolutely brilliantly here today. He's just got a few more corners to run. I don't think we're going to see any repeats of last year of running out of fuel. He should be able to just stroke it back to the finish now.
Everything under control. Just this one last point. That, of course, is where Mark Blundell ran out of fuel last year, but you can hear the Reynard Honda there on full song coming off that corner and across the line to take the checkered flag.
Zanardi wins it. The Ganassi crew delighted once again. A controlled race, a straightforward race. Fernandez in 2nd place. De Ferran takes 3rd position. Franchitti just off the podium in 4th. Greg Moore survives to finish in 5th place after a bit of a disappointing end to the race for him. Jimmy Vasser finishes in 6th place. Zanardi is delighted with that, as he deserves to be. It was a superbly driven race. So Chip Ganassi apparently has just said over the radio, that might call for a donut, a winning donut, a display from Zanardi, and it looks as though that's exactly what he's going to do. Now, I wonder if he's going to get a fine this year for this. There he goes, foot hard down, spinning it round. Nice view from the onboard camera. Look at that, really neat and tidy.
What about traction control?
Yeah, I don't think there's much traction control there, do you? Rubber laid down and a beautiful display.
Great stuff. A wonderful performance by Alex Zanardi. He thrills the crowd there down at the tight turn in turn 3. A tremendous performance, and the crowd loves it. You can hear the crowd. He's going to do it again.
No, I think it's a replay. Actually, it's a replay of what he was doing. Let's just see it from the other view. Look how tidy it was. Almost get the front wheel stationary. That's the way to do it.
He can wave at the same time.
Lovely stuff. That's really great. Nigel Mansell used to love doing the donuts, as Alex Zanardi practiced them quite a few times last year. He used to get it quite as good as that, so I think that's the best ones we've seen. Great stuff. Well, down in the pits is Joe Montana, the co-owner of the Ganassi team with Chip Ganassi. Let's hear from Joe Montana.
First race this season. What a way to come back and watch your guy go, huh?
Well, I'll tell you what, Chip's got them going, and they've been doing a great job all year. My schedule's been kind of crazy and keep me away, but it's good to be back. It's a lot of fun. Come watch these guys race like this. It's something special to be here.
And having fun like that, spinning those donuts, we kind of missed those as well.
We sure did. It was good to see him. He's got a lot of energy today, this weekend. I was going to say today, but he's been crazy all weekend, so had a feeling that was going to happen if he won.
Let's get to victory lane. Go for it.
Thank you.
So Joe Montana very happy, the whole team really delighted. There's the pattern that he left.
Well, that was the Mark II burst. He did it down turns 5 as well, so he certainly burned up plenty of Firestone rubber down there. Absolute jubilation for Alex Zanardi. He loves doing that. He just enjoys letting off steam, and boy, he's deserved that opportunity this afternoon, hasn't he? I know the Honda engineers might not be terribly pleased, but everybody else loves it.
Well, he had plenty of fuel to do it, didn't he? There certainly wasn't a problem with that. And look at that, he's half out of the car as he comes back into the pit lane. Always great to see his delight at winning, and he dominated today. He in some ways made it look easy once more, ran into his troubles, but it doesn't stop him being over the moon about scoring another race victory. Absolutely critical as well, 20 points, 21 points with the extra point, and that will give him a total of 112 in the championship. Looks as though he's going to have another go here. Just down here, we can see that from our commentary box window. Coming up the wrong way up the track now. Now that really will get him into trouble, I think. But he's coming up to the cameras and people on the grid, and Chip Ganassi there, ready to greet him. Jack Roots down there, ready to speak to him. Let's hear from Jack and Alex Zanardi.
This is what the sport is all about. So now the crew, we got to turn Alex around. Alex, the Roadrunner has come to victory lane. He takes off of his gloves. One of the great things about Zanardi is his enthusiasm. It's a passion. He may not know what Wheaties were, but he certainly is a champion now. Alex taking off his helmet, and we'll get a couple of words. So how about it, Alex Zanardi? How about a couple of beep beeps from the Roadrunner? Well, terrific run. Let's talk about it a little bit, because I think many people were surprised that you and Greg Moore just blew the rest of the field away in the early going.
Well, obviously I was giving everything I had. On the same time I was keeping an eye on the fuel, and I was receiving information from my pit, which did a great job obviously today. And
what kind of information? We always wonder about that. What are they trying to tell you then?
Well, you see, if you can't overtake somebody on the track, you better try to overtake him into the pits. And so I was trying to delay my pit stop, because the first lap out on cold tires is really a big disadvantage. You really go slow. So if I would pit just a lap after Greg, I could get by, and that's what happened.
Let's talk a little bit about the run for the championship. Greg Moore gets the pole, gets a point. Did that put a fire back in your belly for this race? I mean, you really want this championship.
I won every single race. Championship is certainly important. All I want, and I tell you from the bottom of my heart, is to finish this season without regrets. If Greg Moore or another boy wins it because he's faster, I'll be the first one to jump out of the car and go and shake his hand. But I want to finish the championship with no regrets, do my best race after race. With the support of Target, maybe we're going to make it.
Now, the big question I've got for you is, you talked about the pit stops, trying to get the advantage on pit road, but when we examined your pit stops, they were precisely the same with Greg Moore. So where do you think out on the racetrack you had the advantage?
Well, actually, we lost a great deal of time, especially on the second one, because I had to let Greg by. But that was not a problem, because we had almost 10 seconds on advantage we could play on. So it was okay, you know, we were trying to keep it cool. I mean, those guys are terrific. They always do the best job they can, you know, but one thing is to go out and do a qualified lap. Another thing is to go out and take a Sunday afternoon drive. You definitely take more risks. So the same thing, you know. We had the advantage we could play on, so they took everything very slowly and gently, make sure nothing was going wrong.
So he puts Firestone back in victory lane, and I'll tell you what, guys, the donuts are back.
Absolutely, and they weren't they well done by Alex Zanardi after scoring a tremendous victory here in Detroit, the third win of the season, and now he has a 16-point championship lead. Really been with us this afternoon. Not, well, I suppose fantastic is a bit optimistic, but we've had a dry track. That's the important thing. Let's go down to the pits and hear from Adrian.
Him on the podium with a second place finish today, surrounded by family members and aunt and uncle, your father, your wife. Everybody's here to enjoy this. This is great. Good feeling, huh?
It is. This track has always been good for us, and I'm happy, you know, for the Patrick team. It was just a tough race all weekend. You know, right from the beginning, no yellows. I mean, that's unbelievable, you know, and this doesn't happen here. So the pace was very strong. But at the end, we start to catch more. My guys did an outstanding job on the pit stop because, I mean, that's why we get ahead of them, and that's why we jump into second place. And at the end, I mean, Jill was giving me a lot of pressure. Unfortunately, we just couldn't pressure Sanardi because it was one guy in the middle, so.
Well, that one guy was Andre Ribeiro, and I know you sent somebody down to the Penske camp. I mean, you didn't, but the team did, to try to see if you could get a run and challenge. Did you feel like if you got by Andre Ribeiro that you might have something for Zanardi?
A few times, you know, I got close to him, but just he didn't back up to let me go because the fight was with Zanardi and Gil, so I just don't understand. But, you know, we're happy, and I think we could pressure Zanardi because at some stage we were a little bit quicker.
And a lot of championship points. You sneak up a little bit on Vassar. I think you're within 5 of him now for third place.
Exactly. It's just, you know, all the same guys are finishing all the time, so it's very tough, the championship, but we're very happy.
All right, let's go back to Jack.
Well, Gary, another driver that snuck up in the point standings just a bit. Again, third place, podium finish, Gilles de Ferran.
Yeah, Jack, it was a tough day for us. I mean, I guess the Walker team did a great job in the pits. I mean, the guys, every time I came into the pits, I came out 2 places in front. And, you know, they did a fantastic job. The Valvoline Cummins car was really consistent throughout the race. You know, the Goodyear tires stayed with me all the time, and that made me, I was able to attack the whole race. I drove the whole race flat out, always trying to overtake somebody.
Let's talk about that attack that you mounted on Adrian Fernandez, because that got very spirited near the end.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I didn't want to let him go, you know, so I bit him and I said, that's it, you're not going to get away from me. And I was really trying to make him make a mistake or something like that. But Adrian drove very well, didn't put a wheel wrong, and I couldn't pass him. But, you know, never mind. We'll get him next time.
Points are so very important, and you guys have been renowned for maybe rolling the dice here and there. But now that you're in the midst of that points chase, does the Walker team maybe play it a little more conservatively than they have in the past?
I think we need to attack every race. I mean, I started this race in a very attacking mood right from the start when we attacked the whole race. I think if we want to make that deficit of points that we have on Zanardi, we need to go and win a few races or certainly finish in front of him. And for that, we need to go.
And, you know, one of the things we're amazed at is the amount of fuel you ended up with in your tank. You guys have run a conservation program, but it doesn't seem to affect the way you run on the racetrack. How is that?
I was driving hard. I was driving really hard.
Guess he doesn't want to answer it, guys.
Well, I think that's a fair enough answer, actually. I think he was driving hard. He was giving it everything he could. There we are looking at the results. Zanardi, the winner then from Fernandez, and de Ferran, the man we just heard from. Dario Franchitti just off the podium, then Greg Moore, and Jimmy Vassar taking the points for 6th, ahead of Paul Tracy, Tony Kanaan, the top rookie in this race, Scott Pruitt in 9th, Michael Andretti surviving to finish 10th, ahead of Bobby Rahal, and Helio Castroneves, another rookie point. Then Michel Jourdain, Robbie Gordon, Patrick Carpentier in 15th, ahead of Andre Ribeiro, and then Christian Fittipaldi and Max Papis. But we're into the non-finishers pretty soon, the likes of Mark Blundell, Richie Hearn, Alonso Jr., and quite a few others. But a good race overall. So it's all over for round 8 of the championship, and it certainly means fun and games in the top part of the series. Alex Zanardi pulling away a little bit more from Greg Moore, but closing up behind him, Jimmy Vassar, Adrian Fernandez, those two getting much closer together. We'll take another look at the results from today's race then. Some good performances, but certainly the guys who've been finishing regularly up there in the top 12 again on this occasion.
Yeah, in fact, of the top 14 point scorers coming into this race, 12 of them scored points. So some shuffling down the order. Certainly some great drives. Again, Adrian Fernandez, a super performance by the Patrick Racing crew there. And Gilles de Ferran, another podium finish. Dario Franchitti, that is his second 4th place finish in a row. So good points for the Scotsman.
That's right. So definitely coming together for Dario Franchitti. Down the list, his teammate Paul Tracy there in 7th place. Tony Kanaan will further extend his points lead in the Rookie of the Year battle.
In actual fact, Helio Castroneves there, who down in 12th place this week, retook or gained the points lead in the Rookie of the Year standings at the last race with that wonderful 2nd place finish in Milwaukee.
Looking on down the list, Michel Jourdain, then Robbie Gordon. Robbie Gordon outside the points, that was a shame. We thought that he might get it up into the points, the former winner here. Didn't quite work out for him.
Yeah, he did too. Gugelmin there in 19th place, a horrible weekend for him. He was a lap off the pace there. Alex Barron, who had a longest stop there towards the end, he lost a couple of laps, and down the end there, Arndt Meyer He had probably crashed the car due to a throttle sticking problem on Friday and had to take out the backup car this weekend, so he was behind coming into this weekend.
Just check the points out quickly for you. Alex Zanardi on 113 points, 96 points for Greg Moore, so 17 points advantage for Zanardi. Jimmy Vasser third, just 5 points ahead of Adrian Fernandez. Gilda Ferran still in fifth, and Michael Andretti in sixth position, but dropping away now quite a long way behind the likes of Alex Zanardi. So it's been a good, interesting race, and of course another race coming up next weekend, well not next weekend, but in 2 weeks' time from Portland, a permanent road course facility where Alex Zanardi will no doubt be trying to do much the same again.